Isle of the Dead by Arnold Boecklin was painted in 1880. The version shown here was painted by Boecklin in 1883 and currently sits in the National Gallery of Berlin. It is my personal favourite because it includes the artist's initials above a burial chamber within the picture. The painting was commissioned by a noblewoman named Marie Berner, who told the artist that the painting was in memory of her late husband and that she wanted a picture for dreaming. Upon seeing an early version of the painting, Berner requested that Boecklin should include a shrouded figure standing up in the boat. Our attention is immediately drawn to the pair of figures in the boat. Perhaps this eerie passenger is a departed soul whom the oarsman is delivering to their final resting place, or a world that exists beyond the painting. Moving away, the single-point perspective draws us into the centre of the image, and we can begin to analyse the bizarre structure of the island. The form of the island appears as a half-natural, half-built series of burial chambers. When analysed, this becomes a confusion of man-made structures and crude openings carved directly into the native rock. For me, it recalls the caves under Tynemouth Priory, which are bathed in local folklore about ghosts and magic. It also reminds me of childhood trips to the Greek island of Kos, where ruins on the shore of Kephalos have been partially reclaimed by the sea. Boecklin himself is said to have been inspired by Mediterranean islands, such as the ruins of Strombolicchio, near southern Italy, and the Greek island of Pontikonisi, which is loomed over by cypress trees. Indeed, the cypress trees in this picture create an impenetrable void at the centre of the image. Maybe this represents the unknowable mystery of what lies beyond death. Or it may just serve as a convenient vanishing point for our eyes to be drawn towards. Fittingly, the psychologist, neurologist, and dream analyst Sigmund Freud is said to have been an admirer of the image, owning his own copy of the painting. The artist himself said little of the work, but once described the painting as a dream picture. It must produce such a stillness that one would be awed by a knock on the door. The Cuponus is a 1769 etching by Giovanni Battista Piranesi that depicts the rotunda of Emperor Hadrian's villa. Piranesi was an architectural scholar, and though he had little contribution to the actual built environment, there is much we can learn from his documentation of the preservation and restoration of Roman ruins. Piranesi's etchings of Rome embody a feeling of post-utopia. His work uses perspectives that make one feel like a spectator looking up at colossal ruins of an ancient world. This is especially true of his documentation of Hadrian's villa, a site that had fallen into such decay that the accuracy of previous surveys done in the 17th century had been called into question. In 1611, the Italian attorney Antonio del Re wrote, "The site is so extensive and the buildings so numerous and large that they have made an immense ruin, above which shrubs and large trees have grown and formed a forest, which prevents one from either drawing a plan or an elevation from the valleys." Piranesi's technique of etching both draws attention to the fantastic structure of the villa, but also confuses us with overgrowth which blurs the lines between the man-made and the natural elements of the building. In an essay titled La Cerveau Noire de Piranesi, or The Dark Brain of Piranesi, Marguerite Yourcenar described this picture as a round structure burst open like a skull, from which fallen trees and brush hang vaguely down like strands of hair. The passage between the collapsed structures in the foreground appear to me like an aisle, which invites the viewer to look further into the picture. It draws our attention to some characters that Piranesi has placed within the scene. This building, which was once the palace of an emperor, is occupied by figures dressed in rags. In the foreground, we see what looks like vagrants reclining on the rubble outside the villa. At the centre of the frame, we see a group of explorers wandering deeper into the building, towards a seemingly endless corridor of Roman vaults and ornament. Perhaps they are archaeologists armed with measuring sticks, making plans and sketches of the villa. This could even be a representation of the scholars that went into the ruin alongside Piranesi for his survey. The surveying of Hadrian's villa uncovered tributes to structures of Greece and Egypt, revealing the emperor's adoration of each culture's architectural typologies. Piranesi's scene of structural decay reminds us that the Rome of yore is long behind us, but the characters show that life went on as normal, and that there was much exploring to be done within these colossal ruins of the old world. The most obvious connection between these pictures is the one-point perspective. This method is believed to have been invented by Brunelleschi in the 15th century, who used it in his sketches of the Florence Baptistery. It has become a staple technique of art, architecture, photography, and filmmaking. It's also the perspective from which we would see a theatre stage. The perspective allows architecture to become the focus of our attention, with parallel lines converging at a central vanishing point to create the effect of drawing in the viewer. In a sense, we create a stage. Narratives can be formed with human figures placed around the setting, simulating how the place is used. People give us a sense of scale and let us speculate on what dramas could unfold within these settings, both real and imagined. More nuanced comparisons can be drawn from these works. Both of these images depict a journey towards immense architecture. The oarsman in Boeklin's painting rows his passenger towards an island acropolis, where the vanishing point disappears into a void of cypress trees that reach taller than any man-made structure on the island. This same creeping sense of nature overtaking structure is seen in Piranesi's etching, where a group of people occupy a ruin, and one faces towards an abyss of lost Roman grandeur. The density of foliage that has grown around the villa makes us question the soundness of the building. Even a dome as high as Hadrian's Canopus is dwarfed by trees whose roots and branches claw at the building's integrity. In both pictures, architecture and nature become one in the same element. The setting serves as a threshold for small human characters to cross over into an unknown world.